question which says that find the sum to infinity of a geometric progression whose first term is 3/8 and the common ratio r is 1/3. Now you are given the option, find the sum to infinity of a geometric progression whose first term is 3/8 and the common ratio is 1/3. Now the sum to infinity of a geometric progression is given by the formula. Sum to infinity is a over 1/1 minus r, where a is the first term. That means the first term of the geometric progression. Then r is the common ratio. The common ratio is mostly given in most questions. But if it is not given, you can easily get the common ratio by dividing the first by the second, the third, like that. So, for instance, if you are given A, B, C, and Z as a common ratio, what you do as a geometric progression, what you do to get the common ratio is divide the second term by the first. So this becomes B divided by A. C must be equal to C divided by B, which must be equal to D divided by C. So that will give us the common ratio for this progression. But since it's already given to you, you don't need to calculate for it again. Now, substituting in our value, our sum to infinity will be equal to, what is your A? Is 3/8 bracket 1 minus, what is r? 1/3. Simplifying further, you have 3/8, sum to infinity is equals to 3/8 divided by, now 1 minus 1/3, you have to find the LCM. What's the LCM of 3 and 1? Is 3. The LCM of 3 and 1 is what? 3. So you have 3 divided by 1 is 3 times 1 is 3 minus 3 divided by 3 is 1 times 1 is 1. So this gives us 3/8 divided by 3 minus 1 is 2. 3 minus 1 is 2 divided by 3. Now, whenever you have something like this, it's often necessary or it's imperative that you break this down into the lowest fraction. So this gives us 3/8 is still the same thing as 3/8 divided by 2/3. That is the meaning of this whole expression here, because this from here to here is 1 and from here to here is another fraction, and this in between them means what? Division. So you have 3/8 divided by 2/3. And whenever I told you that whenever this division sign will change to multiplication, or whenever it changes to multiplication, what happens? You find the reciprocal of what is at the right hand side in such a way that 3 will come up and 2 will go down. So this becomes 3/8 times 3 divided by 2. 3 times 3 is 9. 8 times 2 is 16. So this is the final answer to this question. 9/16. And that is option C of the Neco question. Number 4, option C is the correct answer. We have another question that says solve for s if 128 raised to the power of s is equal to 0.25. Now, to sum, this question is very enigmatic, it's very difficult, but it's not difficult. We are going to do to break it down in the simplest way possible. 128 raised to the power of s is equal to 0.25. This is a question under indices. So we are going to raise 128 to its index. What is the index of 128? First of all, let's do that by looking for the possible factors of 128. Let's go with 2 first. 2 divided by 128 is 64. 2 divided by 64 is 32. 2 divided by 32 is 16. 2 divided by 16 is 8. 2 divided by 8 is 4. 2 divided by 4 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the possible index of 128 is 2 raised to the power of, then count how many 2's are here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the index for 128 is 2 raised to the power of 7 bracket s is equal to, then we have 0.25 0.25. 0.25 is still the same thing as 0.25. If you want to change it to fraction form, what do? You divide by under this decimal point you put 1, then add 0 to the point under, so you have 0, 0, which is equal to 25 over 100. 25 over 100, if you break it down, this gives you 1 and this gives you what? 4, because 25 divided by 25 is 1 and 100 divided by 25, 25 divided by 100 divided by 25 rather is 4. So we have 1 over 4. So the fraction here is 1 over 4. Now, have we gotten this? We've not gotten to our answer. What we do is break this one down to its indents. How do we break 1 over 4 to its indents? Now, 1 over 4 is still the same thing as 4 raised to the power of minus 1. In case you've forgotten, in your indices, you were told that a raised to the power of minus n is the same thing as 1 over a raised to the power of n. Same thing is applicable here. So 4 raised to the power of minus 1 is still the same thing as 1 over 4 raised to the power of 1. 4 raised to the power of 1 is what? Is 4. So we have 4 raised to the power of minus 1 as 1 over 4. So we can, in place of this 4 raised to the power of minus 1, we can put 1 over 4, or in place of this 1 over 4, we can put 4 raised to the power of minus 1. So substituting in, like we said, in place of 1 over 4, we can put 4 raised to the power of minus 1. So this gives us 2 raised to the power of 7, bracket s, is equal to 4 raised to the power of minus 1. Now, what is the indents of 4? What are you going to raise to the power of 2 that will give us 4? Is 2 raised to the power of 2. So this gives us 2 raised to the power of 7, bracket s, is equals to 2 raised to the power of 2, bracket 1 minus what? 1. So this gives us 2 raised to the power of 7 times x is 7s, is equal to 2 raised to the power of 2 times minus 1 is minus 2. This cancels this, and we have 7s is equal to minus 2. To find s, what do? You divide both sides by 7. So this cancels this, and you have s is minus 2 over 7. So the correct answer is minus 2 over 7, and that is option B. Option B, minus 2 over 7. Some of you may be confused about what we did here, which is this 1 over 4. It's very easy. From the law of indices, in case some of you have forgotten because you learned this in SS1, from the law of indices, you were told that a raised to the power of minus n is the same as 1 over a raised to the power of n. So now 1 over a raised to the power of n is the same as 1 over the same thing as what? A raised to the power of minus n. So 1 over 4 raised to the power of 1. Now in this case, your a is 4 and your n is 1. Because anything raised to the power of 1 is what? That thing. So 4 raised to the power of 1 is the same thing as 4. This will give us, we have our a as 4, so we write it as minus our n is what? 1. So we have what? 1. That was how we got here to be 4 raised to the power of minus 1. Then we find the indents, because the indents will help us to what? Calculate further, so that the basis will be equal. Once the basis is equal, we can now what? Divide and get our answer. We have a question on compound interest, which says that find the amount if 240,000 naira is borrowed for 2 years at 8% per annum compound interest. Now, we have two types of interest. We have the simple interest and the compound interest. Now, there is a discrepancy between the simple interest and the what? Compound interest. What is the discrepancy? Now, for simple interest, you calculate it with that principal for the period of what? That year, or for that the period of time the money was borrowed or the money was loaned. You calculate it for that with that principal, the initial principal or the initial capital you started with. For example, if you started with, let's say, 2,000 naira, for simple interest, you use that 2,000 naira as your principal for the 2 years. But for compound interest, what you do, you calculate for the first year. Now the interest you got for the first year, you add it to your principal for that year, and that will form the principal for the another year or for another year. So it continues like that. Like I said, for simple interest, we use just one principal. If you started with 2,000 naira, that 2,000 naira you use it to calculate it for that period of time, let's say 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But for compound interest, what you do is calculate the interest for that year, then add it to your principal for that year. That will give you the principal for the other year. Now, have you gotten the interest for the other year? Add it again to the principal you started with. That will give you the principal for the what? Next. So when you have, you said find the amount if 240,000 naira is borrowed for 2 years at 8% per annum. Now the formula for calculating simple interest is I is equals to P ROT over 100. Here R is the rate, T is the what? Time, and P is the principal. Now the principal is the initial capital you started the business with or you started the transaction with. In this case, the initial amount was given to you to be what? 2,400. So your interest for the first year, so we say interest for the first year will be equal to the principal is 2,400, 240,000 times the rate is 8% times the time for that year is 1 year. Like we said, we break it down into what? Years. 1 year. So this becomes divided by 100. If you calculate this, it will give you 240,000 times 8 divided by 100. So your simple interest for the first year is 19,200 naira. Now, to get the principal for the second year, this is the discrepancy between simple interest and compound interest. To get the principal for the second year, it will now become the principal for the second year will be equal to the principal for the first year plus the interest for that year. Now the interest is 19,200. So this becomes the principal for the first year is 240,000 naira plus 19,200, and this gives us 259,200 naira. So this is your compound or the amount you are starting with for the next year. Now, starting with this amount for the next year, what will be your interest for that year? The interest you said is equal to, now your principal for that year is what? 2,000 or 259,200 times the rate is still 8% times the time is 1 year, which is the next year, divided by 100. So calculating this, we give you times 8 divided by 100, and that gives us 20,736 naira. So your total amount at the end of the year will be equal to, the principal for the second year plus the interest for the second year, which is equal to, principal for the second year is 259,200 plus the interest is, because these are in naira, 20,736. And your final answer will be equal to 259,200, and that is 279,936. In naira, 279,936 naira. So that is your correct answer, and that is option D of the Neco 2019 number 6 past question. Option.